Today is November 14th, 2023. I am a 54-year-old man, and my lifespan is most likely 70 to 80 years old, somewhere in between. So I figure the next 20 years I would live like this, and then I will leave Earth permanently. My two children will keep the legacy going, and I pray that they will be successful. I was washing dishes today, and I thought to myself, I watched this video of these professionals saying there is a aha moment, a day when the light bulb turns on and a lightning strikes. So I scratched my head to figure out what that meant, and it obviously means that whatever the situation is with the market, the professional has seen something that creates a recollection of what will happen when a particular event occurs. When that particular event occurs before the professional's eyes, then the professionals makes the connection and extrapolates it to the future event that will come forth. And there will be a statistical probability to that specific event occurring. So what happens is, I've noticed something like this washing dishes. And people who watch what I do, I go in a certain direction. So, in traffic, people in the United States stay on the right side of the road. And that is a predictable behavior. And therefore, if an oncoming car is on the right side, from my perspective, that is a deviation that is statistically abnormal. That abnormality is the statistical outlier of the event that I'm looking for within that particular situation. If I'm in a one-way street, and when I view that situation, statistically speaking, there is a very good chance that there won't be a car coming this way. But there is a situation where it's late at night, the person is from out of town, and the person may have consumed some alcoholic beverage, which caused the individual to have a deteriorated mind while behind the steering wheel, which caused the individual, either through erroneous and unfamiliar situation, to go the wrong way in a one-way. That is a, statistically speaking, very small case based on analyzing the number of cars that drive that particular road, that passageway. So what that means is that when I see that exactly similar situation in the stock market, then I have a high probability in knowing that it's going to go that direction. Okay, that is the aha moment. And the owner and the boss came back from Italy after with a spiritual journey to seek out Jesus Christ. Took, based on what he showed me, hundreds of pictures. He came back and showed me a few pictures, and every time he showed me the pictures, he transferred goosebumps onto me. So I got goosebumps, and so I got goosebumps from that experience. Then as I was washing dishes and I thought about that, how would somebody get an aha moment or a flash of conviction of somebody who has essentially just it's like, so if I were to describe this, I suppose it's like it's essentially like a light bulb turning on. It's like the light bulb essentially turning on. It's like the brain, if I were to just describe the brain that's occurring, it's like the brain is humming along without with that particular concept existing to that degree, just coasting along. And then a thought triggers this new insight to enter into my mind to say to myself, aha. Aha. And then I got two goosebumps. I got goosebumps on my left arm. I got goosebumps on my right arm. I'm thinking, okay, that's the aha moment. Then I extrapolate. I actually visually recognized the particular setup that I was seeing. And when I see that particular setup forming as I'm watching the stock market, as I see the stock, I see this wedge forming. Wedge. I see this wedge, and I'm watching it because I'm looking to see if I can get into it, and also the trade that I made on my personal account was actually underwater, okay? And so I was just watching to see where the stock is going to go so that I could essentially come out green. But I had to close it out red today on my personal account. All throughout the day. And I'm watching it. I'm watching it, and I'm watching it, and I'm watching it. And I saw this wedge form, okay? So I have to describe it as a wedge. Perhaps when I have like four consecutive payouts, I'll be able to describe it a little bit more. After I pass the challenge, after I pass the verification, and when I start getting payouts from FTMO, then I'll see things through. But right now, I'm looking at it, and I've seen this before too. Every time it does that, it does this. Every time. So if I were to describe it, it's like this. Okay, so this is like the resistance, and what it will do is the stock will do this: boom, 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 and then it hits right here. Generally speaking, when that happens, I've seen this numerous times, and that's why Tim Sykes says that it happens all the time. That's what he says that. This was like, what was that, like 2010 or something, like 13 years ago. I think it was like 2010. I was sitting in a barber's chair, and that's when I went to a barber to get a haircut, and I had some hair. Nowadays it's all gray, so I just shave it off. So I'm describing this to this person who's cutting my hair, and I say, hey, Tim Sykes knows what he's doing. After paying $250, right? So he said this. He says this. That particular thing repeats all the time. That's what he said. And that was like 13 years ago. And he created that program after many, many years before that, right? And so that means most likely that has been occurring for 20 some odd years, right? So I'm looking at it. I'm like washing dishes, and thank God that I have a job where I can I don't even have to talk at all. I don't even have to talk. I don't have to interact with anybody, which is just perfect. It preserves who I am as a day trader, so I don't have to interact with them. I don't have to get involved in whatever they're doing, whatever is going on. I don't have to interact with them whatsoever. I don't have to get involved in any of their emotional roller coaster ride throughout the day. I don't have to get involved. All I have to do is just wash dishes. So, and I had these 2 arms full of goosebumps, right? And I'm thinking, that's why it's called that. It's that moment. It's the moment when I finally make that connection. 2 years ago, there was nothing that I could grasp onto and say, okay, so when this happens, okay? It's not going to happen 100% of the time, but when this happens, this is going to happen. It's something that is so mind-boggling to me. Because as an engineer, I have to prove it out to 100%. I have to make sure that everything is, I have to specifically identify to say that, yes, it is. But as an engineer, if I'm not aware of that particular situation, I cannot say that it is that way. So when I have to make a decision, I have to weigh whether that decision is sufficient enough for me to say that the decision that I make is going to be the right decision or not the right decision. Because when I have millions of parts that are going through a particular situation, I have to say what I have is sufficient enough to cover whatever there is to a specific percentage. 1 parts per million or 2 parts per million due to certain characteristics. Now I'm getting into an area where essentially I'm talking about a particular situation where statistically speaking, I'm talking about 20 to 30%. The odds of certain things occurring with good and successful trades occurring at about 60 to 70% of the time. Or maybe if I'm more diligent, it could be about 80% of the time. And so when I'm looking at it at the 80% of the time, then that's statistically, that's how I have to look at it. And so based on that understanding, I am saying now that the aha moment is extrapolating this particular situation with this particular situation and saying that there is a correlation between A and a correlation between A and B. That is a correlation. That is the aha moment. And I have to say that I am so deficient in so many ways. Okay, when I come over to Office Evolution, I'm essentially not making any money at all. Okay, I don't make any money at all. In fact, I spend money in the occupation that I have. But everybody else is financially productive when they come over here. Okay, so in that respects, and I don't want to bother anybody else who works here because they have to do your job, okay? So I don't bother them. And so I am thankful, okay? I am very, very thankful. And when I go to work as a dishwasher, and I told the owner's father, I said, look, I feel more comfortable working as a dishwasher. Really, I told him, I told him I really must work as a dishwasher in order for me to be productive and continue on this journey. And thankfully, the owner and his father and his family, I suppose, I don't know how that works, but now I am a dishwasher, and despite the fact that I just want to go in, wipe the tables, pick up the things. If the customer asks something, I'll give it to him. And I just wash dishes. Okay? I just wash dishes and then get the heck out of there. Okay? And it's a great thing. It's a great thing that there are loose rules that says, hey, you know, if they can do that, I can do that too. If they can do that, I can be imperfect. I'll just be very quiet, say as little as possible, get my stuff done, and just get the heck out of there and be very, very productive. That's it. There's no other need to get into anything else. Okay? And I am very, very grateful that I'm able to do that. I'm very, very grateful. And I suppose so hopefully the living arrangement will suffice. I have no idea what's going on with I have a huge headache with I have a huge headache with the third person who's just recently moved in. I mean, it's every crevice of the house smells like urine or something. It's just like, I believe it's urine or something like that. It's every crevice, upstairs, downstairs, whatever it is. I almost gagged today. And I suppose it's because it is a felon-friendly environment that anybody of any particular situation can move into that house and live in that room. And boy, I don't know how to deal with it, but that's the way it is. Okay, and maybe it's just helping me to just study harder so that I can move towards where I need to go. So that's that. But I am still very, very thankful that I have a place that I can go and get some sleep. So that's very, very thankful. And a place to shower. Now, this is the aha moment. This is the correlation that I was looking for. That says, okay, that's why, statistically speaking, I've proven to myself. So if I were to look at this particular situation, it is a statistical. So I actually watched Etienne Crete's interview with this lady who used to own a business, and she sold the business. Then she decided to day trade so that she could bring in residual income for the rest of her life. So she said this. She said this, and I believe that's probably what triggered me into making this correlation about this particular situation and this particular situation. That correlation that binds it together and say, if this happens, this is going to happen. If this happens, this is going to happen. Why does it happen? Because it's got a statistical probability. Okay? It's got a bell curve. Okay? It's got a bell curve of what's going to happen. If this happens, this is going to happen. Okay? If this happens, this is going to happen. It's so simple. It's a correlation. That's how, fundamentally speaking, that's how trading works. If this happens, this is going to happen. If this happens, this is going to happen. But there's going to be a statistical number assigned to that revelation, okay? So she says she's not very bright, but she's very bright. First 6 months, she lost a lot. Second 6 months, she lost a little bit. And then the third 6 months, she started to make money. Okay, so that's impressive. That is impressive. That is, apparently, it's better to talk with somebody who knows the feedback. Apparently, that's a great thing. Feedback is very, very important. And doing this by myself and posting this on YouTube, it's like living on Mars, discovering things based on the books that I have, right? And I have to make those connections of what happens. If something like this happens, this happens. This is the pivotal moment of understanding, like, creation of fire. Okay? So, in order for a monkey to understand that fire is made by rubbing two sticks together vigorously, okay? Which is rubbing sticks together vigorously, and then fire occurs, okay? If those two sticks are wet, that's the statistical anomaly, which means that, and also if I just rub two rocks together, that's a statistical anomaly based on the material and what the event will occur. But generally speaking, in a most probable situation, okay? In most probable situation, even rubbing two metals together vigorously, I've seen this on YouTube, will cause it to be incredibly hot and fuse together. And so if I were to put something on it, like flammable material, it's going to start burning. So this event occurs. This is probably the most important thing in understanding what trading is really about. Okay? It's something that was so simple that I was unaware of. It's something that it is something akin to, it is essentially neglecting the most obvious thing that is most imaginable. It is fundamentally the most basic element of day trading that I have fundamentally missed out on for the past many, many years. And now I have finally come to the conclusion. And she said this, and I thought, boy, this lady is just way too relaxed. Okay, she's just so relaxed, because I was at Golden Corral, okay, and I was driving back, and I was thinking about what she said, and she's so relaxed, and she says she's part of this club, and just come on in, and I'm always chatting, so she wants to help people. She wants to help people. I can tell she wants to help people. Okay, I'm not qualified to help anybody. I'm just in it for myself, and I'm recording it so that if somebody goes through it and they somehow figure out how it is, and eventually when I figure this out, then okay, go for it. I mean, if you choose to do it that way, that's one way of doing it. So she said this. She said this, which is incredibly. It just came in. I've seen that video like 2 to 3 times already. Okay, I've seen it. It's free. Okay, it's free. It's free on YouTube, and I've seen it at least 3 or 4 times. I've seen that, and I've come across what she was saying over and over again, but it never gained traction to what she was talking about to me. I didn't understand it. And so she said this. She said that there's probably a direct correlation between a person who is consistently profitable and a person who does backtesting. Okay? So everything is, if you do this, this will happen. If you do this, this will happen. In day trading, if you see this, this is going to happen. If you see this, this is going to happen. If you see this, this is going to happen. This is something that is so, this was so simple and so obvious, it just never occurred to me. I'm like, because so eventually for the past 2 years, what I have been doing is that, okay, it looks like it's doing this, so I'll get in, I'll trade. But I could never substantiate a statistical, I could never assign a statistical probability to that particular event, creating this. So if I were to create this, it would be like, so if this is 100%, if this is 100% and it's this big, then the statistical probability will have a shape. Okay, it can't be bigger than this because it's got to be smaller. Okay, it can't be 100% either. It can't be 1-to-1. It cannot be 1-to-1. It just cannot be 1-to-1. But it's got to be smaller, but by what? Is it 50% smaller, or is it 60% smaller? Is it 70% smaller, or is it 80% smaller? How smaller is it? Okay, that's how it works. And she said this. She said this, and I finally understood what she was talking about. And she said this. This is something. It's mind-bogglingly how simple that is. But she said this. She said, people who backtest, okay, people who are consistently profitable are most likely doing some sort of backtesting. A direct 1-to-1 correlation with a high statistical probability that there is a consistency between backtesting, consistency, and backtesting. If this happens, this happens. It just ties everything together. In 2001 Space Odyssey, the movie begins with a what is it? Obelisk or something. Okay, so it's this obelisk. I think that's how it's pronounced. It's obelisk or something. Okay, so this monkey is like throwing sticks up into the air, and this music comes on, right? This music comes on, and then this monkey is essentially very similar to a Neanderthal. That's the beginning of mankind, right? Historically speaking, on a scientific basis, through the evolutionary ladder, that's where the inception of human race transformed itself to become human beings. And so this Neanderthal, which essentially is embedded within me, which rears itself to control my trading, day-to-day trading. Okay, this is the aha moment. This is essentially an incredible observation of what essentially is happening, because the brain was switched off. The brain was switched off. Apparently, there's two parts of the brain, and somebody else actually tied this together. Essentially, when in the heat of the moment, the logical side just turns off, and the Neanderthal brain, fight or flight, okay, occurs, and that part of the brain starts to make the trades. And then only afterwards, when all the emotions have cooled down, then the reasonable side looks at it and says, oh, that was so obvious, but I didn't do that. That's why I've noticed that when after the closing bell, I look at the trades and I say, oh my God, I missed that. Look at that. It was so obvious. So it ties everything together, right? So if I flick a lighter, if I take a match and run it across the matchbox, fire will occur. Okay. when a when a when a spark plug when a spark plug has electricity sent through it, okay, it's going to cause a spark to go right across. It's going to cause the electrons to flow. It's going to rush through. Okay, the gap is such that it's going to cause a wide distribution of electrons to flow through air, creating a spark, which has a specific combustion heat. And when it's when it's in contact with a gaseous state of liquid gas, okay, the gaseous state of liquid gas, it combusts into fire, okay, internal combustion engine, right? So when that event occurs, then fire occurs. So when this happens, this happens. And so my job essentially is to create a high probability trade that happens a lot of the time, such that I could trade it any time that I want. And when I have that particular, they call it a holy grail, okay? Apparently off the coast of Colombia, there is a Spanish ship that has how many billions of gold coins, like 1 million gold coins, okay? And they call it a holy grail, okay? And so essentially, I am in the pursuit of ever enhancing that particular situation to work it in specific situations, okay? Now, Warren Buffett has a specific strategy of moving based on time differential equation. So he probably knows differential equation. Or he calls it, what is it, the power of compounding or something? What is it? So he knows based on time, extrapolation of time within a specific event. He talked about this investment with gold or something. And so he said, if you invested $10,000 and you invested in something that works for you instead of buying the gold will be like $600,000 apparently, right? 300 ounces of gold or something back then, right? Investing $10,000. So that means that gold will appreciate to about $600,000 within that time. But it is 100 times that. So I was thinking, okay, so 10 times 10,000 is 100,000. Okay, so what is that? 100x. So 10 times that, 10 times 100,000 is what? $1 million, right? So I think it's $1 million, right? Yeah, $1 million. That's about $1 million. So that $10,000 became $1 million. So roughly about 2 to 1. Okay, I think that's how it works. 100 times, right? Yeah. A 0, 0. Okay. Add 2 zeros to it. Yeah, it's only $1 million. So essentially a 2 to 1. Okay, so that is not an eye-popping kind of an illustration, but so the idea is to create this holy grail of this specific events to occur based on the strategies that I have for specifically targeted returns that I want. Obviously, one method cannot work on a strategy that wants like $10 million a year versus something that is essentially workable, making maybe $250,000 a year, right? $250,000 a year, right? So that would be a different strategy that I've been looking forward to. So essentially, what that means, this essentially is something that should have been so obvious to me. It should have been obvious, because anytime I do a back testing, it is essentially taking what I know and then putting it through the tests to figure out what is the statistical probability of certain events occurring, to assign a statistical number to that event, forming a statistical outcome of whatever that I'm testing it. But as somebody who has no idea what day trading is about, essentially the beginning was essentially gambling, because what I would do is essentially, starting off, is essentially reversion trading. I'm saying to myself, okay, it went down to this much and it's going to go back up and I'll buy it. That has been the strategy for the past 2 years. God is my witness. That was the strategy for the past 2 years. Okay. No wonder when the market is going up, that works really great, because it would dip and it would come back up. All right. But when the market is actually dropping once in a while, what that will do is essentially take every penny that I have and then some, because I would take that same amount, put it into the trading, and then it would move against me, and then I would, like, that's why I experienced like 100 essentially blow-ups last year and the year before, right? That's why that's occurring, because I did not have a statistical, if this happens, this is going to happen. If this happens, this is going to happen. See the light bulb just turning on? So essentially it's like, it's very, very similar to like being in the dark and the light just turns on. It's like this connects it together. It's like, I suppose that's how that's how water is made, by combining hydrogen and oxygen. Okay. That's why certain companies, they still hesitate into going to purely EV vehicles, because they also want to use like hydrogen vehicles, which will, the exhaust will actually drop out H2O, right? Because it creates this heat from combination of H2, two H's and O, right? H2O, right? There's also heavy water, right? There's also heavy water. But on a statistical, in a normal environment where these drinking waters are concerned, with a particular high statistical probability of that water occurring in normal situations, it'll be H2O, and combining together, creating that spark, right? That's what's going on. That is the aha moment. When this happens. I saw that. I've been looking at it. I've been looking at the market. I've been monitoring it. I've seen it as I traded. I see this chart forming. This is I would say the first real if this happens is essentially this, okay? When this happens. When this, actually the other events actually did occur, like double tops, okay? It's just that I've known about the double tops, but I've never really understood the outcome of that particular situation, which is waiting for that situation to occur, because it creates a higher probability. It creates a higher statistical probability that when this event occurs and this event occurs, then I could take that and there will be a statistical probability to it. But what I had to do was, that was always there. I've seen it before, and I've seen that correlation between when the East Coast lunchtime is over and when it's in essentially a bullish kind of an economic condition. There would be a dip, and there would always be a situation where it would return. And so buying a double dip would be a statistically advantageous reasoning to get into that trade. And sure enough, on a certain statistical probability, it'll produce gains. So what that also leads me into is, if I were to bet the whole farm on that particular trade, so every time I could be up, 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 and then one trade will just wipe it out, right? So it has to be broken down into segments of these trades, so that when I make that trade, okay, this is something that I need to also keep thinking about too. When this happens, this happens. So the next stage of the next stage that I need to really further dig into and get further understanding is essentially understanding of that that particular part of it, which is essentially saying that when this happens, this is going to happen on a statistical basis, right? Yeah.